Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalimanatosmi laye sambodhayet chittam vikshiptam shamayet punaha Sakashayam vijaniyat samapraptam na chalayet. Om. So just now mentioning to Bapagaru and Latagaru that there are a lot of importance has been given for genetics, inheritance, and then conditioning that we have had from our past ancestors, and all of those concepts are talked about. And then Yoga Sutra also agrees that we have inheritance, and technical terms are given because each discipline has its own technical terms. And here the terms they are given are vasana and samskara. So two critical terms that we have to clearly know what this vasana and samskara is before we get into the actual sadhana or the practice of the chittavritti nirodha. So what is vasana? Vasana is a strong impression residing in our chitta. And then this vasana, which is residing in our chitta, is carried from life to life. That's the nature of vasana. So if that was there, it is impossible to remove vasana. So there is whatever yoga sadhana you do, whatever scriptural study you do, we are not able to change ourselves. But then the Yoga Shastra comes and talks about there is another concept called samskara. Samskara is a purificatory act in which we have got volition. So by means of our taking projects of samskara, then this samskara can be of two kinds again. Because of vasana, because of our tendencies, we tend to do acts which are actually in synchronization with our vasana. So, for example, suppose I like a particular kind of dish, and then I keep eating that dish only because I like it. So that means for the vasana that is already there, I am actually making it stronger by the samskara that I am abetting, I am supporting, I am enhancing the vasana. So in other projects, suppose we do take up such acts of samskara by which we go against the vasana, then in that case, the vasanas can be chipped away. So therefore, vasana and samskara are a critical understanding before we even get into sadhana. So our samskaras, how do they arise? Samskara is where we are using certain tools. What are the tools we are using? First of all, we are using our body. And this is called as the Rupa Samskara. Because of the body, we are actually performing certain activities. Rupa Samskara takes place. And then the next Samskara that comes up is called the feelings. So when we are applying body for certain activities, we are also following it up with feelings. Feelings are called Vedana. So there is a Vedana Samskara. So Rupa Samskara is there. Vedana Samskara is there. And in addition to feelings, we also have perceptions. It's intellectual in nature. We also have perceptions about the world, and the perceptions are called samjna, and the samjna samskaras are taking place. This is the third level at which we are actually working with our vasanas. And then past impressions also, as we are using the rupa, samjna and vedana, past impressions are also coming up and then telling us you are comfortable here. And that has to be changed. So that is why sometimes our ancients teach us how to change it by means of clever stories. So you have heard of the beautiful story of Tenali Rama. Tenali Rama was a court jester in Krishnadevaraya's court. And then the challenge was that a cat is very much interested in drinking milk. So why is it that the cat is always drawn to milk and it will drink the milk even by stealing? It is because of the vasana that the cat has. So the challenge was if anyone who can make the cat stop drinking milk, then a certain gift is given. So many people try many methods. So all of them failed. Then it was Tenali Rama's turn. What Tenali Rama started doing was, he started placing in front of the cat boiling milk. So first time it tried to drink the milk and its whiskers were all burnt, so it ran away. Second time, third time, fourth time. And by the time he brought this cat to the court, even when cold milk was placed in front of the cat, it did not drink. So what is this process? This process is called Vijnana Samskara. Vijnana Samskara means you create those lifestyle activities which include the rupa, the physical body, the feelings, vedana, and also the perceptions. All of these things together are applied to reverse the vasanas. So therefore, among all these vasanas, which is the most powerful vasana? This most powerful vasana has been identified in the Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter. It is Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha. So an embedded vasana in us is that of desire and anger. So whatever sadhana that we are doing as established in the 2nd chapter is these vasana, rupa and the vedana have got to be converted into vijnana samskara. And for that purpose, we have to understand the nature of vasana very clearly. Vasanas are of two kinds. One kind is called malina vasana and the other kind is called shuddha vasana. So what is the nature of malina vasana? Malina vasana is the one which leads to punarjanma. Malina vasana is the one which makes us do the same mistake again and again and again. This is very familiar to us. We get a stomach upset and then we take a vow, I will not overeat anymore, I will not eat this. But as soon as my stomach becomes comfortable, when I see food, I will go and eat everything and then become gluttonous. So therefore, this leads to the punarjanma of the same problem. We can experience it in this life itself. So malina vasana is the one which leads to punarjanma. Shuddha vasana is the one which leads to a better birth. Shuddha vasana is the one which leads to even liberation. So the focus of the 2nd chapter is to understand the structure of the vasana and to create a samskara style, which is a lifestyle. and use that samskara to neutralize the malina vasana and to increase the shuddha vasana. So what are these malina vasanas? Malina vasanas can be of three kinds. It is called loka vasana. Loka vasana means a pressure for me to get social recognition, a pressure for me to please others, a pleasure for me to listen to somebody who will say you are a successful person. That is called loka vasana. Then the second is called shastra vasana. Shastra vasana means dry intellectualism. I have studied this book, I have studied that book, here is the collection of my knowledge, and then without any transformation in my vasana structure. That is called Shastra Vasana. Then there is a third vasana, it is called Deha Vasana. Deha Vasana is what we will discuss a little more deeply, called Abhinivesha, or clinging to life and the fear of death. So there are these three vasanas. So in general, vasana is divided into two kinds, Shuddha Vasana and Malina Vasana. Malina Vasana leads to Punarjanma, Shuddha Vasana leads to better birth and liberation, and Malina Vasana has got three kinds, Loka Vasana, Shastra Vasana and Deha Vasana. So what are the Loka Vasanas? You may remember that in most of the courts of the kings, this is true of European kings, this is true of Indian kings, everywhere they will have a court poet. And what does this court poet do? He will write the history of that, his protector, his king, and he will make him a Chakravarti. So what is the range of land he controls? Maybe at the most 100 square miles. And they call him as a Chakravarti. And all the gunas, the greatest gunas of a Raja is imposed upon him in a work that actually pleases, that actually flatters his teacher. I mean his king. This is, why do they do this? This is because they want to have a social recognition and of course the resultant financial benefit also. In Karnataka, there was a very, very learned poet in North Karnataka. His name was Harihara. This Harihara also was a great devotee of Shiva. And many of you who have seen the capital of Krishnadevaraya, Vijayanagara, Hampi. In Hampi, that's where he lived. And he was a devotee of Shiva, who was known as Pampapati. Pampapati is Hampa or Pampa is the place, the Lord of Pampa, Shiva. And Harihara was a very great devotee, and at the same time he was also an extraordinary scholar. He had a student. His name was Raghavanka. This Raghavanka was an eminent student of Harihara. But at the same time, Raghavanka also was honored by the local king of that time. So even though Raghavanka was a very philosophically oriented poet, he was also interested in public recognition. So he wrote a kavya by name Harishchandra Kavya. He wrote a kavya on the great king Harishchandra, whose story you know very well. That is, he was one of the Raghuvamsha kings, and then he was committed to truth, enormous amount of commitment to truth. So he wrote a story on Harishchandra. The implication was that all these high qualities also apply to his own king. So the king was extremely pleased by the quality of the work that Raghavanka had done. So the king calls the royal elephant, and on top of the royal elephant they place the book of Raghavanka. One more elephant is brought, and on that elephant Raghavanka is seated, and then that they are taken in a procession. human nature is whose recognition we admire most. We admire the recognition of our parents first. If my father or mother tells me that you are my worthy son, I truly love what you have done, you are an excellent person, that's the most satisfying thing. And thirdly, it is the teacher. When the guru tells me that you have studied well, that you are learned, that also becomes a matter of pride. So Raghavanka, he steers the entire procession in front of his guru's house. He wanted to see how much he has grown under the tutelage of his guru Harihara. And then he gets off of his elephant, goes inside and prostrates. He is already in royal clothing, and then says, "Sir, because of your blessing, I have been given this recognition." And Raghavanka, Harihara, the teacher, asked, "What did you write?" He said, "I wrote a treatise on the king Harihara, on the king Harishchandra." So the teacher says, "What have you done?" Manujara mele, on human beings, Savavara mele, those who are going to die, Kanishtara mele, who are ordinary people, Akkata, alas, Tana tanage Indra Chandra Ravi Karna Dadichayandu main. You just call these people as Indra, Chandra, Ravi, Karna, all these names you know very well. Dadichi is the one who gave his own spinal column in preparation of the of the divine weapons. Anavaratam pogaldu kedabede kanda, day in and day out, don't go on praising. Neenu aharnisham, day in and day out, nene pogalu archisu. Remember nene, pogalu, you actually praise, archisu, worship. Namma kadu sompina pempina ampeyaldanam. This Pampapati, who is the real Lord of everything, praise him. So the social recognition, the pressure of the vasana, loka vasana for social recognition, the antidote is Ishvara Pranidhana. That is why the first sutra is Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha. What does Ishvara Pranidhana do? Ishvara Pranidhana neutralizes our Lokavasana. Then we have got Shastra Vasana. What is this Shastra Vasana? It is dry intellectualism. There is a beautiful Subhashita which says, Adhitya Chaturo Vedan. You go and study all the 4 Vedas. And then Vyakritya Ashtadasha Smritihi. There are 18 branches of knowledge. And then you go and actually write a commentary on all these 18. So what did you achieve in our life? Aho Shramasya Vaiphalyam. It is a great loss of our energy. Atma api kalito nachet. That's the key word. If with all these things, if you did not understand the glory of the Atman, when Atmajnana is not got, all these Shastra Vasana is not going to take us anywhere. So the Shastra study is very much necessary. Social engagement is very much necessary, but social engagement should lead to Ishvara Pranidhana. Shastra reading has to lead to wisdom, Vijnana Vasana. Vijnana Vasana, the project even is Swadhyaya, the proper study of the scripture. Then you have the Deha Vasana. What is the Deha Vasana? It is Mrityubhaya and Abhinivesha. We will see more about it. So this Mrityubhaya is taken away by means of tapas. So for the neutralization of Malina Vasana, Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha, the first, at the very beginning, the very first sutra is introduced in the background of the Vasana. So let us look at Shuddha Vasana. So in Shuddha Vasana, we said it leads to better birth and better lifestyle. So what are the Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana? As far as Shuddha Vasana is concerned, this has been established already in the Yoga Sutra, first chapter, 33rd, number 33 sutra, where it says, Maitri Karuna Upeksha Muditaha. Unconditional friendship, Maitri, and then compassion, sense of joy, and a little bit of detachment. And when we practice these, and the 26 qualities identified in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verses 1, 2, 3. Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhi. So I'm just giving you a cross reference as to how those can create the Shuddha Vasana. So Tapasvadhyaya Eshvara Pranidhana is to neutralize the Ashuddha Vasanas or Malina Vasanas and cultivating the Shuddha Vasana by Samskara and Ashtanga Yoga. So what our religious practice did was, to remind us constantly of this threefold project, they created what is known as a Tripundra. The Tripundra is the mark that we put on our forehead. It can be vertical, 3 lines vertical like the Nama. It can be 3 horizontal lines such as the Vibhuti. So what do these 3 remind us? So first and foremost, it reminds us there are threefold entities to understand. One is Vasana. Vasanas causing Punarjanma. Punarjanma to be neutralized by means of Samskara. So the 3 lines, first and foremost, Vasana, Punarjanma and Samskara. And for the sake of neutralizing these 3, an understanding of the Veda known as the Trayi. Trayi is Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda. And this is done, again coming back to Yoga Sutra recommends us to contemplate on Om, because you remember in the first chapter we saw that Ishvara Pranidhana Dva, you do Ishvara Pranidhana. How do you do Ishvara Pranidhana? Tajjapaha, by means of repetition of Om. And this Om is made up of A, U, Ma, the 3 syllables. The Tripundra represents Akara, Ukara, Makara. Then, again relevant to Yoga Sutra, the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas. Relevant to Tantra, the Shakti Traya, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti. Ichha Shakti is the power to desire, Kriya Shakti is the power to act, and Jnana Shakti is the power to know. These 3 are derivatives from the Tantra. Then we have the Sadhana Traya. The Sadhana Traya is Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani. So therefore, for the Madhyamadhikari, for the intermediate person who is competent, we saw that for Uttamadhikari, who already has achieved the Ekagra Chitta, it is the first chapter. For the Madhyamadhikari, who is in the process of acquiring Ekagra Chitta, but has perfected Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama, the Ashtanga Yoga, one who has already perfected, he is the Madhyamadhikari. For him, Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana. Then we have the lowest, are called the Nimnadhikari. He also has got some focus. He also is in the right path. He is the one who practices ahimsa. He is the one who practices shaucha. He is the one who is always trying to be happy and give happiness to others, santosha. All those qualities are there. And such a quality person is the lowest of the adhikari as far as chittavritti nirodha is concerned. He is a good citizen. Good citizen is a blessing for the society. But what about for himself? For himself, he has got work to do, so he will go for Ashtanga Yoga. That we will see when we come to Ashtanga Yoga part of the second chapter. Now here we are talking about the Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama Adhikari, he needs these three because he is now concerned about Vasana. That is his main concern. Because I want to change my genetic code. And therefore I have got to pursue tapaswadhyaya Ishvara pranidhana. Now again, why does the scripture take this top-down approach? Now we have to ask a question. A teacher in whom you will invest your highest amount of your energy. So you look at, let us say, Rao Garu. You have so many number of students who are reporting to, who are under you. In whom do you invest your highest energies as the dean? Obviously, you have to invest your energies in the best of the best, correct? You have an observation, Rao Garu?
That's correct. In fact, even in leadership, the philosophy has changed. Previously, they used to teach leadership in terms of what qualities are your strengths and what qualities are your weaknesses, and they would try to give you education in improving your weaknesses. Over the last 10 to 12 years, the philosophy has changed where they're saying, forget about your weaknesses, focus on your strengths. That's where you will make a difference.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to become an average on everything. So you are right. The correct way is obviously to enrich the best of the best. But the unfortunate thing is the entire education system has been designed to take care of the average, which is why the top students get bored and the bottom students don't make it.
So the more and more we address the mediocre people, the more and more mediocrity we develop in society. But look at the Yoga Sutra model. In the Yoga Sutra model, the first chapter it addressed for Uttamadhikari. That means the teacher is now focusing on the best of the best. And which is the weakest link? The weakest link is those who are interested only in Arthakama. As far as Yoga Shastra is concerned, weakest link in the society are those who are pursuing Arthakama, and those who are pursuing Dharma Moksha are either Madhyamadhikaris or Uttamadhikaris. So what does Arthakama do? Pursuit of Arthakama is necessary, but the pursuit of Arthakama is always going to the pursuit of Arthakama is actually always going to increase this vasana only. So it's not going to do any removal of the vasanas. Therefore, Yoga Shastra starts with the best of the best. Now, there is a trickle-down effect of this. So when Yoga Shastra is addressed for the Madhyamadhikari and the Uttamadhikari, Madhyamadhikari is made into Uttamadhikari, Uttamadhikari is made into an excellent teacher, then what happens? When he enters into society, he becomes a role model. And every Madhyamadhikari that Yoga Shastra has created by his perfecting of the Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana, and he becomes a teacher for the Nimnadhikaris, the Adhikaris who are in the lower level. So thus, directly and indirectly, the top-down methodology has been approved by our sages from the beginning. And in the presence of the Uttamadhikari and Madhyamadhikari, the beauty is that the Madhyamadhikari will inspire the lower person. The lower person means don't think we should condemn that person. He has got all the good qualities. Please note, he is a very good citizen. He becomes inspired to look for Chittavritti Nirodha. Ultimate purpose of Yoga Shastra is to make us inspired to say, I want to control my mind and be peaceful. So this begs a question, how do we say that somebody is a Madhyamadhikari? What are the prerequisites? Number one is, he must have a desire to control the mind. What is the project for somebody who is doing asana and pranayama, let us say? For a person who is doing asana, he is only interested in strengthening his body. And for a person who is doing pranayama, he is only interested in continuing and getting longevity, because pranayama gives longevity. So for that purpose he is following. Still it is deha vasana only, isn't it? So he is not focusing on the purification of the mind. He also follows social skills are there. He is very kind to people. He is very helpful to people. But the lokavasana is still there, and lokavasana also creates punarjanma. Chittavritti nirodha doesn't take place. So for Chittavritti nirodha, first and foremost, he must have a desire to control the mind. He must have a commitment to lead a life of dharma, and he must continue to act yama niyama asana pranayama. Just because a person has perfected yama niyama asana pranayama, it doesn't mean he has become, even though he is doing kriya yoga, that he should give up all that project. He should continue to do that. Whether a person is madhyamadhikari or uttamadhikari, yama niyama asana pranayama continues. Then he is constantly doing dharma. Now the question is, what does dharma do? Dharma creates punya. And dharma lifestyle again is going to bring us back to punarjanma only. So in spite of the possibility of dharma causing punya and punarjanma, the madhyamadhikari will continue to do dharma. It is because, what if our lifespan runs out before Chittavritti Nirodha is achieved? In that case, we have a chance for resuming it in our next life. It can happen even in our life only. For example, some challenge comes suddenly in our life, and for 1 or 2 months you may not do anything. After Usha passed away in May, for 2 months I did not teach any class, I didn't do anything. So does it mean to say that it was a failure? But the punarjanma that took place after 2 months, when I came back and said, let me go back to the study of Shastra, let me go back and get engaged with the world, I picked up where I left. It may not be perfect, but I picked up where I left. So that is where a person has now to shift for what purpose I am doing yoga. When you are doing yama niyama asana pranayama, the Ashtanga yoga, the focus is on dharma. When you are doing kriya yoga, tapasvadhyaya ishvara pranidhana, the focus is on samskara. Please note, the focus is changing. Entire Bhagavad Gita is talking about dharma. The advanced course of Yoga Sutra is shifting our focus, not ignoring dharma, shifting our focus to vasana. Because what is the focus for a person who has dharma shraddha? For one who has got dharma shraddha, his focus is punya focus, morality focus. Punya, morality, proper social engagement. Now the question is, did that give and remove the inner defect of avidya? The yogi is now asking the question. The antarika samasya, the question of the inner personality of klesha. We are going to see what klesha is soon. Klesha and raga and avidya, ignorance, continues to exist until such time a person takes up tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhana. Dharma can take care of our physical and emotional challenges, but it cannot take away the intellectual challenges. Intellectual challenges has got to be when we focus on samskara and vasana. It's only when we focus on that avidya can be removed. So therefore, what is the problem with avidya? Avidya creates a klishta samskara. Again, I want you to connect back to our study of the first chapter. In the first chapter, what does it say? What is the nature of the vritti? Klishta, klishtaha. There is the klishta vritti and aklishta vritti. Klishta vritti and aklishta vrittis are related to chitta. And it addresses chitta and not deha. Vidya is the one which creates aklishta vritti. Vrittis that do not cause klesha. We'll see klesha also presently. And therefore, he who is concerned in purifying the samskara is the adhikari here. He who is interested in purifying these vasanas by means of new samskaras, which actually neutralize the vasanas, is the subject matter here. So if we can bring out one formula, the solution for an internal problem for the antarika samasya is samskara vasana shuddhi, purification of samskara and vasana. And for that, the only way to get it is by means of kriya yoga, tapaswadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanani. And therefore, Vyasa, in commenting on this sutra, tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani, he makes an extraordinary statement. Na tapasvino yogaha siddhyati. One who does not do tapas, for him yoga will never be available. Here, yoga has to be looked at as the clarity and purification of our vasanas. So let's quickly recap. The focus has shifted for the yogi from merely leading a life of dharma. He will not give up the life of dharma, but he does the life of dharma naturally. He does not have to think, because he has practiced dharma constantly in such a way, he is a naturally good person. So no effort is there. Without effort, there is no yoga also. So he is effortlessly good person, but the inner confusion, the inner intellectual confusion of kleshas. What is the klesha? My ignorance in me. my attachment and aversions, ragadvesha, my ego, asmita, and my clinging to life, abhinivesha, this has not left me, in spite of being a person of dharma. Now this next question comes, okay, what does tapas do? This tapas is the only one which can actually remove the impurity in us, nothing else. So what is this impurity that tapas removes? There are two problems. One is called karma and another is klesha. So now we are looking at another classification of vasana, karma vasana and klesha vasana. The conditioning that has been created in our internal personality because of the number of things we have done throughout our life. Not only this life, but all lives. And the klesha vasana, that is a constant suffering from ignorance. These two things have been there, totally embedded in our personality, and this has completely enveloped our chitta. So what is this enveloping force? This enveloping force is called Vishaya Chitta. Vishaya Chitta means Chitta which is interested in objects of enjoyment. And the objects of enjoyment are 5: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Sound, Shabda. What we hear can actually confuse our mind. It can disturb our mind. After all, it is sound. Just because somebody has made a noise, it is disturbing my mind. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Each one of these is absorbing. What about when they are all together for the human being? Remember, we studied in the Vivek Chudamani in verse number 78 in our study of Vivek Chudamani. Shabdadhibihi panchabhireva pancha. From Shabda Adi, beginning with Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. One of them was enough for the deer. By listening to the sound, it was caught. By touch, the elephant was trapped. By the lamp, the moth died. By taste, a fish was caught. And by smell, a honeybee was trapped in a flower. What about the human? Our vasanas and samskaras have been driven by Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, and this has caused karma, this has caused the klesha, and therefore tapas is the only way to remove. So for a madhyamadhikari who is already a noble person, who is a dharmishta, for him the next prescription is do tapas. Now here also one more caveat. This tapas can also be harmful. How to make sure that this tapas doesn't harm? As soon as our peace of mind, chitta prasannata is disturbed, that is the time to stop tapas. So again, let us go back to Lokavasana, Shastravasana and Dehavasana, and we are working on overcoming these Malina Vasanas. At some point of time, fatigue will take over. Isn't it? As soon as you feel fatigued, that is the time to break. Take a break. So all those questions of saying that the person did 10,000 years of tapas standing upside down. Kubera, we were talking about him in this morning. Kubera wanted to become a Lokapalaka. He wanted to become a king of one of the directions. For that, what was the tapas he did? For 10,000 years, he went to Himalaya, to Manasarovara, and then dipped his head in the water and did tapas for 10,000 years using pranayama. This is what the Purana says. And Brahmas did not come back. So he comes to the hot plains. And then there is a tapas called Panchagni Madhya tapas. Panchagni Madhya tapas means hot sun on the head. And on four corners, east, west, south, north, they build a huge fire. And that heat from the fire, and amidst that, they sit and do tapas. So what did Kubera achieve? Nothing. He only punished the body, that's all. So if you have to go in sun, wear footwear. There is no need to do Deha Dandana, because that's not going to remove our vasana. Actually, this can only create ahankara. I am able to walk with bare feet for 100 miles. What do we do with that information? We go and tell everybody, this is how I did. In fact, this is very, very common. Whenever they want to start a Raghavendra Matha in a particular town, those people who want to establish this Raghavendra Matha, what they do is, from wherever they are, they walk barefoot to Mantralaya. Mantralaya was the place where Raghavendra Swami is Samadhi is there. There they will take a little bit of mrittika, that is a little bit of soil from the Raghavendra Swami, and then they will walk back, impervious of the harm that they are doing to the body. That is their Shraddha. But they are not the adhikaris for Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana. They are doing Yamaneyamasana Pranayama, still they are the lowest adhikaris as far as Yoga Shastra is concerned. So, Deha Dandana, that is the punishing of the body, should not disturb mental posture. Tapas has to be done in that manner. And here again, not out of laziness we stop tapas, we stop doing tapas because we do not want to hurt our body or the mind. Now this comes to another important question then. If tapas is not addressed to the body, and if tapas is addressed to the chitta and the klesha, and it is tapas is addressed to remove the impurities, when did this impurity come into my being? This is a standard question everybody asks. I am born a very innocent person. We have seen innocent children. How is it they turn out to be different as they grow? Why is it? How does it happen? Now Shastra says this Ashuddhi or this Klesha is beginningless, Anadi. They call it as Anadi Klesha. But this presents a logical difficulty. If something is beginningless, that means it is eternal, it is permanent. If it is permanent, it can never be changed. How can you correct it? If something it was never born, if something that is never born will never die. So if ignorance was never born and it has always been there, you cannot remove ignorance at all. For that, the answer given by the Shastra is Anadi Klesha, means we really do not know from how far back it is there. Because whatever is there in my memory, whatever I can project in my analysis, I cannot find the beginning. It doesn't mean it is beginningless. Only thing is we do not know when it started. And therefore, because at some point of time it started, and therefore what I need to do is I have to remove. Therefore, let us attempt on a particular kind of karma which is going to remove the ignorance, which is called tapas. So we are going to create a new vasana now. The new vasana we are creating is called chittavritti vasana. This chittavritti vasana that we are creating, we have to be very careful, should not cause malina vasana, but it should cause shuddha vasana. So what is the shuddha vasana? We leverage on maitri, karuna, upeksha, mudita. We leverage our chitta based on the dharmic life we have led. So from the dharmic life, what we do is karma vasana, then we will create new chitta vrittis. So we call it as karma vritti vasana. That means new lifestyle is introduced by tapas. By means of swadhyaya, we are going to create new ways of thinking. Entirely different way of contemplation and vichara is going to take. Then the mental vrittis will itself change. And that vrittis are the new vrittis that are going to create are not going to cause any klishta or avidya. So otherwise, even though I am pursuing dharma style of life, still the vasanas called klesha vasanas continue to exist. What does tapas and swadhyaya will do is it will create aklishta vasanas. See, this is how the scripture is connected. Klishta, klishtaha. Klishta and aklishta vasanas are created. And by means of this tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara pranidhanani. And therefore we have to design such tapas and swadhyaya which is going to create the aklishta vasanas. So therefore we come to, we'll see more about tapas, and then we'll also see more about swadhyaya. The overview of swadhyaya is we choose such study, such subjects, which will take us to the next step beyond dharma, adharma duality, which will actually inspire us to start contemplating on the loka vasana, etc., the three vasanas that are there. And that vasana removal, for that sake, we are going to take up swadhyaya, the particular kind of study. So the new study methodology introduced in chapter 2 is to change the vritti of the mind to which we are conditioned so far. And that vritti vasana will be removed, and in that consequence karma vasana will be removed by means of tapas. Then we have got Ishvara pranidhana. Now in Ishvara pranidhana, what basically here as far as Yoga Shastra is concerned, it is to invest our contemplation on the Parama Guru. And the Parama Guru is called Ishvara. And to that Parama Guru, the bhakti is now directed. Now the question is, why should we do all these things? All these things are to be done only for one single purpose. Klesha tanu karana arthascha. Sutra number 2 says, Samadhi bhavana arthaha. For the sake of achieving total absorption samadhi, which is the goal of yoga, on the one hand, and on the other hand, for the sake of loosening of the kleshas. For that purpose, we have to shift our attention after perfecting a lifestyle of dharma, not before. After perfecting a lifestyle of dharma, after perfecting an extraordinary relationship with the world, full of self-control and self-discipline, and acquiring enough of dharma and punya so that our mind will be inspired towards paying attention to vasana and samskara, when that project is taken, it is possible to change our very genetic code. This is where Yoga Shastra is also meeting with modern research in the effect of genetics. Especially, I was reading about the research they are doing on Alzheimer's disease, for example. Is Alzheimer's inevitable? What triggered my interest in looking at this a little more deeply was my visiting the Ronald Reagan Library in Los Angeles. Have you been there? You must go. It's a phenomenal place. Very beautiful presidential library. Ronald Reagan's life has been traced. His achievements have been phenomenal, obviously. We all know that. But then the way you go through the entire library is as you are almost completing your visit, you come to his last days when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And then he himself articulates as to what was going on in his mind. That was when I was thinking, if you want to talk about yoga, about dharma, about leadership, he was an extraordinary leader. There is no doubt about that. Coming from just show business. With all these things, why did he get Alzheimer's disease? Even though he was so mentally active. What was missing? So when I was thinking about that, that was when this sutra, Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani, struck me as a solution. Now you see how important this sutra is, because if we incorporate in our life Tapasvadhyaya Ishvara, we'll see more about tapas. In fact, even Bhagavad Gita also talks about this various kinds of tapas. In the next class, I will point out to you the exact verses how Angika, that is bodily tapas, Vachika, tapas of the speech, and Manasika, the tapas of the thinking has to be done. It is there in the Bhagavad Gita. We will get a cross reference. Actual methodology is given as to how to do tapas. And when we take up that tapas, I am sure that this vasana can be changed. And the quality of our klesha, the quality of the kleshas which harm us in avidya can be reduced. So in turn, probably it can also have a great effect on our physical health. Because great yogis have done that. In fact, I was reading a book on a few Zen monks whose brain was evaluated by neurologists. And they found that their brain structure itself they had changed because of their meditation. So tapas can also have many, many benefits. Basically, if chitta klesha, if our mind is prashanta, if it is peaceful, whether we live for 20 years or whether we live for 200 years, what does it matter? Every moment of our life has been full of joy. Every moment of our life has been peaceful. That is a fulfilled life. It is not merely how many years we live, but what quality we lived. So tapasvadhyaya ishvara pranidhana does weaken the kleshas. And therefore, this is a project which is introduced in the second chapter of the Yoga Sutras. We will see more in our next class.